Hey guys, it's Mike and I'm here today talking about another watch that I recently purchased. I recently did a unboxing of a Zenith Captain Windsor annual calendar watch, and then this is a new one I've just recently picked up. This is from Tudor, and this is the Heritage Advisor. A lot of history in this watch. They made a Advisor many years ago. I believe in the 50s is when Tudor introduced their Heritage, or sorry, their Advisor watch. And the interesting thing about it is it's one of the few watches that has a mechanical alarm function, which this one does as well. Interesting thing about it is, you know, they've expanded the size of the watch here a little bit. I believe this is 42 millimeters, 41 or 42 millimeters now from the classic. I think the original was probably 36 or so. And they've also added this date indicator on the bottom in kind of that circular wheel format, which is an addition. So a couple of very interesting complications in that respect. So this is the watch itself. It's all steel. I don't think they make it in anything but steel. This was debuted in 2012, I believe. So you can see the dial there, and there aren't many videos about this watch on YouTube, so I wanted to do a little bit of a walkthrough. So there's a close-up shot of the dial. As you can see, very nice white dial. You can see there's a couple of layers, and then you have the Arabic numerals at 3, 9, and 12. And then some stick markers at other spots on the dial as well. You've got very good solid end links. You can buy this watch with the steel bracelet, as I have it here. You can also get it with a leather strap. Tudor also includes a NATO style strap. For this watch, it's black. When I purchased this, I actually didn't get that. It was sort of a gray market seller who did not have that, so I can't show that to you, but I'm more of a bracelet guy anyway, so I'm happy with the steel bracelet. So you've got two crowns. That's one of the iconic things about this watch. You have this one here, and you can see it's got the Tudor rose. So Tudor really has kind of two logos on some models, like the Heritage Black Bay, I believe. It's this rose logo that actually sits on the dial, and here you can see it's the Tudor shield on the dial, and then on the bottom crown you can see the rose there. So this is used for adjusting both the time. You can wind it through here, and then it'll adjust the time and the date, and then all of the controls for the Advisor function, the mechanical alarm function, are done here, with the exception of this teardrop shaped pusher at about 8 o'clock, which controls the on-off function of the alarm function. So you can see on, if I press that, off, on, and so on. So that's how you set that. Two positions for this crown. The first is the winding position, right there, and you can see as I wind it up, you'll see the power reserve indicator at the 3 o'clock position. That's the power reserve for the mechanical alarm. So as I wind it, you can see that increasing. So that's fully wound there now. And if I pull it out one more position, the alarm is the red hand on the dial. And interestingly, it only rotates one way, but I'll give you a listen of what it sounds like here. So I'll move it to the current time. So not particularly loud, but if you're wearing this on your wrist, you certainly do feel it and notice it. It does have a noticeable vibration, which is interesting. You certainly could use it. I don't know if it would wake you up, but you certainly could use it to remind you of something throughout the course of the day. So let's look at the steel bracelet. You have looks like 4 steel tapered. I think this is a 22 millimeter lug width, and then it tapers down to 20 or maybe 18 millimeters. So there's kind of 4 tapered links, and then for me, I have a small wrist, so just 1 additional link here. They're all screw-in links, as you can see right there. And then you have 3 kind of micro adjustments on the clasp. You can see the Tudor markings on the clasp as well. And then on the other side, again, tapered steel links there. So the clasp, very nice. The way that this works is there's no, if you're familiar with, you know, a Rolex, you know, newer style Submariner or GMT steel bracelet, there's a spring mechanism here. That's not the case here, and instead what they've done is they've put ceramic bezels on springs right in here. So when you close this, that's what keeps that closed, and then 2 more ceramic bearings on the outside there. So then you have the flip lock there. So it sits very securely, very nice. You know, I would say that the bracelet is about as good as you would get on a Rolex. You know, for me, Rolexes tend to have some of the best steel bracelets, and I don't think this is far off. The solid end links are very solid. There's absolutely no play at all once they're installed, but still very easy to remove. I have removed it to clean it and things like that. So it does sit very nicely on the watch itself. So I'm very happy with that that function as well. I'll show you what it looks like on the wrist. And again, I have pretty small wrists, so this is a 41 or 42 millimeter watch. And there you go. It sits very nicely on the wrist. Not particularly heavy, in fact, probably a little lighter than I expected it would be. You know, there is a bit of thickness. You know, I think what they've done here is used a ETA movement. I don't know which reference, but then they've built the alarm function right on top of it. So there's a bit of additional width to the case. I wouldn't say it's cumbersome, but it's definitely, you know, sits a little higher off the wrist. It doesn't bother me, but I can see how it would bother some. So that's what it looks like on the wrist. You know, for me, I have been satisfied with it so far. I'll admit I don't use the alarm function that much, but I think that the watch really stands on its own as an interesting piece. I like the dual crowns. I like the pusher at 8 o'clock. I think it's an interesting conversation piece. And so I actually like it even without using the alarm function frequently. I think it's just a good looking watch, and then of course you get the nice steel bracelet, which is, you know, very, very solid. So the whole thing feels very good. It is waterproof. I don't recall to what depth. You know, I would say it's probably, you know, 50 or 100 meters. It's not a lot. These are just kind of push-in crowns here, and then there's, you know, there's no ability to you know, secure the pusher either. It's not like it's a screw down pusher or anything like that at 8 o'clock. So not a great deal of water resistance, but you could probably take this in the shower and would be just fine. And they certainly broadcast it as a water resistant watch to at least a certain depth. So there you go, guys. I wanted to show you my new Heritage Advisor. Just one more comment. I think that the MSRP on this is 6,000. That's either Swiss francs or US dollars. I'm not sure, although these days they're pretty similar currencies. But you can get this watch for a little cheaper than that. I was able to find it, like I say, on the gray market for, you know, materially cheaper than that. You know, so if you look on Chrono24 or elsewhere, you should be able to find this. There doesn't seem to be a lot of demand for it. You know, I haven't seen that many where I am. I haven't seen any of them at all, frankly. So I don't think that this one is selling like some of Tudor's other newly introduced watches, like the the Heritage Black Bay or the Pelagos, or they've got a couple other interesting new ones like the Black Flag, and the Monte Carlo chronograph, I think, is very popular as well. This does not seem to be getting the same recognition, but what that means is you can probably pick this up for a little cheaper. So I think it's a great looking watch. I think it sits great on the wrist. I think it has an interesting complication. One thing that I think would be really neat if they thought about doing is, if they added some sort of chronograph function in here, and I think that would be technically perhaps quite challenging, but then you'd almost have a poor man's grand complication. I think in some traditional definitions you'd want to have some minute repeater or alarm function, which this watch has. You'd want to have some type of date function. This is a very simplistic date. Obviously a calendar of some kind would be much more prestigious and interesting. But what this is missing is, a timing function of some kind, a chronograph. So it would be interesting if Tudor down the road added that function, and then you really would have quite an interesting, complicated watch, but at a very accessible price point. So that's something that I've been thinking about is, for $1,000 or a couple $1,000s more, could you get a chronograph? You'd have to be careful. You'd have to find a way to do a mono pusher or something, because you already have 2 crowns and a pusher on here. But is there a way to kind of up the complication level and make it sort of an entry level poor man's grand complication, so to speak? So anyways, guys, that's the watch. Hope you've enjoyed this, and subscribe for more videos. Thanks very much.